You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show. The preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. The Chris Voss Show, the family that loves you, but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your mother. So welcome to the show, my family and friends, to the Big Top, the podcast in the sky. As always, we have the most amazing guests. I think you're going to be excited to hear from this one today, because he's going to be bringing a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, and a wealth of decades of doing some exciting things in the world. And I know some of you out there are going to be like, oh my God, and you're going to be giddy with all sorts of coolness. I know I am. My nipples are hard right now. Can I do that joke on the show? I don't know. We'll check with the attorneys. Anyway, guys, in the meantime, as always, we use those tease-ins and lead-ins to guilt and shame you into referring your friends, family, relatives to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and also go give us 5-star reviews on the iTunes there. We certainly appreciate you. We love the people that do that. They have a special place in my heart. It's kind of like right over here if you're watching the YouTube video, and there's a whole box and a room in there for those people. And when I sit at the rocking chair at the end of my life, I'll be like sitting there thinking of all the wonderful people who give us 5-star reviews. So you will be remembered. Anyway, guys. Shit in the ramble. We have an amazing gentleman on the show. We're talking about some really cool stuff. And I promise you, if you're not impressed, then, well, there's other shows. We have a gentleman on the show, Todd Wahnish. Do I have that correct, Tom? Did I hit that right?
Yeah, you absolutely did.
There you go. I want to make sure. It's early today in the morning. Todd Wahnish joins us on the show. He's a blockchain enthusiast and Web3 visionary shaping the future of digital interactions. He's a multi-award-winning entrepreneur and product specialist with over 25 years of experience in the animation and comic industries. He's contributed to the creation of original IP for renowned companies like, you may have heard of these, this is what's going to be exciting, Marvel Entertainment, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Warner Brothers, and Kid Robot. If you haven't heard of any of those companies, where are you living in Utah or something? Todd has had the privilege of working directly with creative legends such as Stan Lee. You may have heard of him as well. If you haven't, then you're definitely living under a rock. And Jeff Koons, and the most successful American artist since Andy Warhol. It'd be even cooler if you worked with Andy Warhol, but I don't know. There you go. In addition, to his impressive career in animation and comics, Todd is also deeply involved in the Web3 space. We're going to be talking about Web3 today. And he is a key figure in the development of adultfantasy.io. It's not what you think. We'll find out about that. And Web3 Comic-Con, pioneering the intersection of digital culture, blockchain technology, and pop culture. He's a mentor and an advisor, and he shared his expertise with entrepreneurs for some of the world's top startup institutions, incubators, and accelerators. And welcome to the show, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
There you go. We're going to have a broad-ranging discussion here. This is going to be pretty fun between entrepreneurism and IPs and Stan Lee and Marvel Entertainment, all these really cool things that you've done. Give us a .com. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs and stalk you?
Well, I've got two for you. The first one is adultfantasy.io. So it sounds exactly like what it is, adultfantasy.io. And the second one is web3 Comic-Con. That's COMICON.com, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
There you go. There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of both of these companies. I know Adult Fantasy sets a tip off that it might be something, whatever. And I guess I had a dirty mind, as you explained to me in assuming something. Tell us what they are.
Well, Adult Fantasy is smut. No, I'm just kidding. Good night, folks. See you later. No,
we just lost half the audience. Right.
No, so Adult Fantasy is actually a system for allowing original creators to come in and develop and create intellectual property and characters, like a character franchise creation system, in a bottom-up approach. So the reason it's very simple adult fantasy. We tend to be grown-ups who like pop culture and fantasize about making stuff. So there's nothing, especially in Web3, if anyone's been looking at Web3 or just been curious about it, nothing screams adult fantasy than a bunch of grown adults, grown people purchasing JPEGs in the hopes of bigger and better riches, right? It's pretty fantastical. So adult fantasy seemed like a good name, and it also turns heads, which is always a good thing in my book. Usually
they go to the website and they're disappointed. They're like, "Oh, this isn't what I thought it was." But it looks really cool. It looks like a lot of I see like a lot of kind of Adult Swim sort of characters and different NFTs, I guess, here and things like that.
For sure. So the idea behind adult fantasy, we're certainly, with my background from Marvel Entertainment and Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, we're really here to do the things that we as creators always wanted to be able to do, which is like if you look at the things that we buy, like if you're watching on YouTube behind me, I've got what I call the world's most expensive green screen. It's essentially just a ton of toys and comics and graphic novels and books, right? And as a kid, when you're buying these things, you're just a consumer, right? You buy the Spider-Man book, but you don't have any say in the direction of Spider-Man. You don't have any ownership in the Spider-Man property. You get to go pay to see money to see Spider-Man in the movie theater, basically, right? Or t-shirts or backpacks or whatever. But if you actually think about it from the standpoint of a community or a tribe around that character, well, for example, take Venom. So one of Spider-Man's biggest villains, his biggest bad guys, is Venom. And when that book came out in the 90s, I think it was the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, something like that. The character of Venom, of course, the story was great and the art was phenomenal from Todd McFarlane, genius comic creator. However, it was the fans that made Venom a popular character. The fans bought the book. The fans said, we need more of this. And so the head honchos at Marvel said, okay, it's a money tree. Let's make more Venom. And so you start with a mini series and that sells out. And then let's say, okay, let's put it on some merchandise or license it out. And that sells out. And fast forward a decade or so or two, and all of a sudden you've got Venom movies, right? But as a fan, you or I don't have any say in that. It's a one-way relationship. Well, with the blockchain and Web3, we actually can change that dynamic and own what it is that we create. The number one word you have to understand with Web3 is ownership. That is what Web3 is about, right? If Web 1.0 was about read, right, where you were reading the web, really simple websites where you could just read blog posts and really early forms, right? Web 2.0 is where we are now, which is write. So you have the ability to read and write with Web 2.0. That's your apps. That's your Facebook. I can type a post into Facebook and hit post and everyone can see it. It's databases and logins and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, Web 3 is about ownership, where through Web 1 and Web 2, we gave up all of that information. We don't own any of our privacy. If you type a key in your computer, it is being recorded, right? Everything you do is captured and data mined and reproduced and reused for advertising and all kinds of purposes that you may or may not agree with. Well, with Web3, you actually stay in control of the things that you create. It is provable, it is permanent, and only you can change it. So it is about assuming that we're moving deeper and deeper into the digital age and more people are going to do more and more digital things, ownership becomes a real big deal. And so from the adult fantasy perspective, we were like, well, what if we created a universe, the next Marvel universe, the next great property where first we'll seed it with characters, because that's my background. So I'm like, cool, let's do 1990s Marvel comic style characters meets Venture Brothers from Adult Swim, because I love both those properties, just to kind of put the idea out there and then start creating the tools where other people can come in, whether you're an artist, whether you're a writer, whether you're just a fan and you don't actually have any skill or talent to think of, it doesn't matter. We're creating the tools where you can come in and create a property, create a character, and by kind of kind of, I don't want to say tricking people, but strategically showing people that they can also build businesses for themselves by way of these creative outputs, right? And so we're bringing those tools together so that a community can build these characters, build these creations, and then the best can rise to the top, and people who create them can get rewarded for it, as they should.
There you go. So, let's talk about how that plays into Web3, the Comic-Con property, and what you guys are doing there, and then we'll get to your origin story.
For sure, man. So Web3 Comic-Con, we hit a really interesting point last year where we launched Adult Fantasy in 2021 and did pretty well. We were pretty happy with the results. And then in 2022, we were launching our products and kind of continuing to grow Adult Fantasy, but we were kind of like, well, what's next? And we also knew that the market can always go up, can go down. We're in a recession, or, maybe you don't think we're in a recession. I think we're in a recession. So, there's always, regardless of the economic temperature, it's always volatile. So we were like, well, what can we do to make sure that we're going to be here for the next 50 to 100 years? Like, what can we actually do to increase our footprint and really connect people together? Because that's just like we're creating with Adult Fantasy, like the connection point for creators and fans and things like that. We said, well, what if we created a network effect for founders and actually people who are actively building in Web3? Mm-hmm. And so you can almost think of these as like a staircase. So we were like, okay, people can come into Adult Fantasy. We can help them create their businesses. We can help them launch characters. We can help them have fun creating toys and games and t-shirts and all kinds of stuff. And then if they get traction, or if they want to get a bigger audience, maybe we can create something like Web3 Comic-Con where they can have a virtual booth and they can actually do interviews and actually get their work exposed to a much broader audience. And the other reason we thought about this is, whereas in IRL, the real world with pop culture conventions, you can travel, there's a ton of them, and they're relatively affordable. In Web3, these conventions are scattered all over the globe, and in some cases they cost thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. And so from our perspective, we were like, well, that's not really going to onboard people. And a lot of people kind of have heard the word, blockchain, or heard the word Web3, and they're not really sure what it is. And they're not sure how they fit into it. Is it a scam? Is it not a scam? Like, there's all kinds of crap information out there. And so we thought the best thing that we could do was to put a virtual conference together with some of the best pop culture and entertainment brands that we know, friends of ours, get them all together, do interviews, and really educate people about not just what each project or company is working on, but really show how Web3 is the future of entertainment and how it's the future of popular culture, among other things. And the best way we could do that from a ticket price is to say, it's free. So if you go to web3comiccon.com, you just push a button to say claim your free ticket. It's a free ticket. The show is live right now, as in today. It goes on for the rest of this week. So if you're watching, you can go there right now. Yeah, it's fantastic. And thankfully we've gotten a fantastic response from fans and creators. And we think this is the beginning of a beautiful thing.
There you go. I know a lot, we talked in the green room, a lot of people can't go to these shows because they sell it so quickly. They're expensive to go to. And, a lot of events have gone online now. 5,000 plus attendees, 40 plus speakers, 3 days. It's going between August 16th through the 18th.
Correct.
And so, people are still watching our videos from 10 to 15 years ago. So is this going to be held every year? So if someone's watching this 10 years from now, they'll know where to go. Yeah. Is that the planned yearly sort of event?
100%. So we'll be doing this every single year. And we're also, once the convention is over. So if you're like, it's the 22nd, I'm like, damn it, I missed it. I just heard the show and it sounds awesome. It's totally okay, because we're planning different ways that people can watch all of the replays and get access to everything. So this is an ongoing venture. And we're really here it's a cross between education, a lot of education in the space, but we do it in a fun way, because I think that the way to become a fan of something and learn what it can do for you is by seeing what it can do for other people, and have fun doing so.
There you go.
So it looks like we even have the future of golf. We talk about all kinds of stuff. So sports, games, comics, you name it.
And you guys have a thriving Discord, looks like, about 7,000 plus people that are in their Discord doing stuff.
it's magic. You know, I just showed up in a towel out of my shower and did some TikTok videos, and everyone showed up.
That's usually how it works these days. So there you go. So Todd, tell us about your origin story. You work with Stan Lee. You've
Mhm.
worked with a lot of impressive different companies and stuff, Marvel Entertainment, etc. Give us your origin story. Tell us about how you got here
Oh
and
man.
some of the things that you learned over the decades that go into the current products you're working on.
Oh, for sure, man. Great question. So the TLDR of my background is, um, I from the time I can remember, all I wanted to do was draw comics professionally, and
Mhm.
so I have kind of a one track mind. When I put my mind to something, I tend to do it. Like just like conventions. Like, hey, let's throw a convention. That'll be easy, right? It's totally fine. We'll just learn how to do it. So I really wanted to do comics, and by the time I was old enough and had the experience, and by the time editors were looking at my work and saying, "Hey, you finally hit a professional level," the entire comic market crashed. This is like in the 90s. And so I was just graduating college and I was like, well, I need a job. And fortunately, I was in Atlanta at the time and Cartoon Network was there, and Cartoon Network was just taking off.
Mhm.
So I got very lucky. I bothered the hell out of people. I called every day. I called once a week for like 2 months until the producer, I'll never forget, he forgot to put the mic, he forgot to mute the phone. And he was like, can we have a job for this kid, Todd? Like, he keeps calling. Can we just give him something? And I was like, yes, like just badger people. That's the secret number one.
Persistence.
Persistence and badgering. Yeah, polite
There you
badgering.
go.
And then once I got in, I literally never left. It was also because I was broke and they had a stocked kitchen. So I was like, well, they have a bathroom and a kitchen, so I'll just live here. And so I just kind of made it my goal to be the first one there and be the last one to leave. And just even when there wasn't any work, I would ask politely if I could show up.
Mhm.
Because they had empty desks. I was like, well, do you mind if I work on some of my own stuff? And they were like, we don't care. And so I put
Wow.
myself in a position where when the work came in, I was the first one there. So they were like, okay, you, you know?
Yeah, that's
So,
brilliant.
so I started off as an inker because my comic line was really tight at the time.
Mhm.
And then I moved up to assistant animator and an animator and director and all this kind of stuff. Moved up through the ranks and ended up launching my own company.
Mhm.
It was just me and maybe one or two friends that I would contract, and so we called it a luxury animation boutique.
Oh,
Right? Sounds nice, right?
yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
yeah. It's me in my
Expensive
bedroom
too.
with two
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
Exactly. It sounds expensive. So that we ended up working on a lot of with a lot of great clients that way. I ended up doing a lot of music videos. Dirty South hip hop was huge at the time in Atlanta, Georgia, in the South. So
Mhm.
Outkast, Goody Mob, things like that. Tony Braxton, The Roots. So I ended up doing a lot of music videos for them. I really wanted to be a music video director. Like I absolutely like the classic Aha video, Take On Me. I was like, that's my career. I'm just going to do that. If I can't do comics, I'll just animate music videos. And that way I won't be bored and I'll always be able to experiment and grow and all that. And of course, YouTube comes out and of course the music video thing kind of goes away. Um, Migrated up to New York City in 2003 and kept doing stuff, kept working, kept hustling, and slowly over time just started releasing my own products.
Mhm.
It was, we created toys. So this is actually a bunch of our own toys back here that we launched.
Mhm.
And Really, that's sort of how the entrepreneurial journey started.
Mhm.
And the way that the Stan Lee thing started to kick in and the Jeff Koons thing kicked in is I had been doing my own company now for probably 10 years, maybe a little longer,
Mhm.
maybe 15.
Mhm.
And no one ever taught me business, right? Nobody, I just knew to keep getting work. Like I was like, I'll just be here and you just keep giving me stuff to do. And
Uh-huh.
that'll be the career, right? That's how it works.
Uh-huh.
And I realized after so many, like that roller coaster ride, the peaks and the valleys and the ups and the downs, after several years of that, decade plus of that, I was like, I can't do that. I'm missing something.
Mhm.
And then, so when the opportunity came, the first opportunity was for Jeff Koons. A friend of mine called up and was like, "Hey, we're looking for somebody, but it's full time." I shut the studio down. Hardest decision I
Wow.
ever made. It was a massive pay cut. I mean, we're talking, a lower than $20 an hour job
Wow.
from making, close to six figures, around six figures a year.
Yeah.
Right. So I was a huge pay cut, but I was at a point where I didn't like I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to break the ceiling that I had created for myself. I was like, well,
wow.
this guy's the number one artist on the planet. Like, surely if I'm inside his company, maybe I can, like, of course, make the best work I can and make myself a valuable assistant and all that good stuff, but also learn the ropes. Like, what does this guy know that I don't know? Right.
There you go.
And that was also the same thing, the jump from Marvel. So I learned all the stuff I wanted to learn working with Jeff. It was a fantastic experience. And then the opportunity for Marvel came up. Exact same thing. I had a friend call me up from, like, a guy I knew in college. Someone who I kind of peppered his mind like 3 or 4 years prior. I had just said, hey, by the way, if you ever need an Iron Man animation, give me a call. I'll do it for you for free because I fucking love Marvel. You know what I mean? And he calls me out of the blue and is like, hey, man, you remember that animation thing you were talking about? It's like, yeah. He's like, you still doing it? I was like, for you, of course. He was like, well, they're looking actually at Marvel. They're looking at maybe bringing somebody on. You want to do an interview? And I was like, yeah, why not? And so one thing led to another, and that's how I landed at Marvel. And they brought me in to develop my own intellectual property. So I got to go through their 8,000 characters and create a pilot. And then they brought in Stan to pitch the pilot at San Diego. And it was wonderful. It was fantastic. I feel like I did my best to use my time with Stan wisely and just ask him as many business questions as I could without being like that snot-nosed brat in the corner that just won't leave him alone.
There you go. I mean, the Stan Lee is like, I don't know, would you call him the Godfather of comics or?
100%. Yeah, you can call him that.
Yeah. I mean, he loved by everyone around the world. Recently passed, I think, a few years ago, I think. And I always wanted to meet him. I thought he was a really cool dude. He always seemed really nice. And then, some of the cameos in a lot of the different movies and stuff. And so I think the fan base for him. I grew up collecting comics as a kid. We had the simple stuff back then, Superman and Spider-Man and all that stuff. It seems to have done a lot of things. For viewers, tell us what's in your background, because for viewers most of the people are going to listen to this on the podcast and audio, but we want to encourage people, of course, go to the YouTube and subscribe. There's the plug. But what's behind you? There is a picture of Stan Lee behind you and other things. Give us a readown on what that.
Sure. So over on this side, this is all at the top shelf is manga, like Japanese comics. Then I have these are all graphic novels and different art books. And then directly behind me, this pillar kind of in the center, these are called Marvel Essential Collections. And they don't make them anymore. But what they did for quite a while was they were reprinting all of the classic stories, all of the stuff from Fantastic Four #1 and Thor #1 and Captain America #1 through the issues of hundreds. And what they were doing is they were reprinting them in black and white on newsprint paper, just like the original comics. And so for an artist perspective, to see tens of thousands of pages from the masters of comic illustration as close to seeing the real art as possible, right? Without like an artist edition or something. It's just a treasure trove for me. And then up here behind me, directly behind me, we have other artists. We've got Alex Toth and Jordi Brunet and Katsuhiro Otomo, who did Akira. That's an entire shelf dedicated to him.
Akira Kurosawa?
No, Akira the movie from 1988.
Okay.
Yeah. So Neo Tokyo, all that good stuff. So basically, these are sort of the people that inspire me. This is like my inspiration wall. Yeah. And then to this side, these are all pieces that we created. Like, this is a lot of I'll show you real quick on YouTube here. So like these are a couple of characters.
Wow.
Right. And so these were very similar to what we're doing now. This was an early experiment called Blanky, and I think 2008. Really? It was 2008 to 2010. And these were designed by artists all over the world. We did a contest, and I was like, well, I'll make the platform, which is the shape of the toy, because I'd done toy design, right? And we got all these artists from all over the world in a contest to design the toys. And and so it was pretty successful. I just manufacturing and having to put all the money up front doesn't seem like a good idea to me. But now we're in the world of digital, so we're kind of doing the same thing with adult fantasy. It's just kind of bumping it up a notch.
There you go, and then you don't have the upfront cost of the inventory. So there you go. You don't have to do the production stuff. I mean, I built my businesses back in the brick and mortar age. Back when you had to do large investments just to sign a 3-year lease on an office building, buy all the furniture, and then get the licensing, sometimes government licensing, and then after you paid for all that, you're just like sitting there going, I hope somebody buys our stuff.
It's hard. That is not easy. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. And so, now it's a whole new age. Now you can start a business. You just go on GoDaddy and, $20 and you're cooking. But this is great. What's going on in the future. And of course, you talk to entrepreneurs as well. You help entrepreneurs, teach them, talk to them about how to start a business, how to monetize and all that good stuff, I guess, because you kind of went through that journey where you had to figure it all out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the short story behind that is, in between, kind of in between all of this, my wife and I were learning how to code. So this is back 2013.
Mm-hmm.
We taught ourselves how to code. My wife is now a lead dev. She's huge.
Oh, wow.
She's a freaking genius. I found that I was, oddly enough, better on the design side, on the front end of that kind of stuff. But what we were doing was we had a company called Arting that was a decentralized gallery platform for artists. It's no longer up. It's not there anymore. But again, you can kind of see the thread of this throughout my life, is like trying to build things for creative tools for artists to help them with business. And we started doing a lot of contract work for a lot of startups, both venture backed and bootstrap startups in New York City, because we were there. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I did, and I think I'm thankful for, is I always go into a situation, and maybe it's a character flaw, but I always go into a situation, a new environment, thinking that I know nothing and that I'm the dumbest person in the room, right? So I'm always like, I don't know what I'm doing. Clearly, if you have an app and you have venture backing and you've got the funding, you've raised, $1, $2, $3, $10 million, you know something that I don't know, because I've never done that. Mm-hmm. And by doing the consultancy, what I would do is as we were building the apps for them, I would pepper them on their marketing, because I was like, well, clearly that was my failure at the time. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's my biggest weakness. I can make all this amazing stuff, but it's like hell trying to get people to buy it, because I don't have a massive audience, right? And I don't know how to get an audience. Mm-hmm. And so these people raised a lot of money. They must know more than I do. And so I started asking them about marketing stuff. And what I learned very quickly is that they had no idea. A lot of the answers were, oh, well, we'll pay a marketing firm after the app is made, which is mm-hmm. a terrible idea, in my opinion. And when I would ask them about some of their marketing ideas, what ended up happening, and it wasn't a plan, is they would tell me their plan, and I would be like, don't do that. No. And I would tell them about what happened to me and my background, because I've launched so many companies prior to Adult Fantasy, and before we had successes, right? Mm-hmm. I had like 7 or 8 companies that just either broke even or failed outright. And so I had made a lot of mistakes. And so I was telling people, like, I wasn't necessarily telling them what to do right, but I was like, don't do this because it's wrong. Mm-hmm. And what happened over time, over a period of years of me doing this, it started where I would start, just telling them on the phone, and then it migrated to videos, because I didn't want to say the whole thing again to their co-founder. And what I learned is that I started to gain confidence in myself in that regard, because I learned that the people who actually took my advice did well, and the ones that didn't did not. Mm. And not to say that I was some sage, but I was like, okay, well, clearly I know what not to do, right? I was like, just don't do what I did and you'll be fine, And
sounds like my whole life.
Right, exactly. And so that's over the.
You didn't have to agree with me.
Totally. Well, but that's what I'm here for, Chris.
I set it up.
You did. So over the last 10 years, I've coached and mentored and advised a number of startup founders and entrepreneurs, and we have a really good track record with their success. And so why not try to bring it to a bigger audience?
There you go. You've worked with the Thiel Fellowship, Peter Thiel probably, and Techstars and all that good stuff, and done mentorship experiences with them. So, I guess you deal in blockchain technology, and you've been good at merging it with pop culture. What do you see the future of the space of Web3, blockchain technology, and all that? Do you see Web3 becoming this huge, expansive future? That seems obvious, but I'd love to hear your words on it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, mm-hmm. where we are now is where we are right at the, if you remember, I mean, you look much younger than me, Chris, but if you remember the .com era, right? And
no, I'm too young for that.
Too young. Okay. Yeah. Well, for those of us who lived through the .com era,
I made a lot of money day trading for that.
I did. Well, you remember it was everyone was talking about the internet, and it was like, why do I need the internet? I have a fax machine.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you can listen to music online. Why? I have tapes. That doesn't make sense. Who is going to want this? Right? Yeah. We have the broadcast news. Why do I want to watch a video online? Like, so there was this huge gap between the opportunity and what the future was going to be and what most people could see, and that's where we are again. Again, the point of Web3 and blockchain, the very key point, if all you do is take away the fact that Web3 is ownership, that's the key to everything. It's ownership of everything from your identity to the things you create to your home to everything. So as Web3 moves forward, you're going to be able to own all of these things that are now digital. You'll retain ownership of whatever assets you have in your possession. So the applications are kind of endless, but I think some of the obvious ones are tickets for shows, right? Well, if you have it as a digital ticket, you'll scan it in on your phone. That ticket is an asset that you own, which means you can resell it later. So if you go to a concert and it turns out to be like the equivalent of like a legendary Beatles concert or something, you actually have something that you can sell on secondary, and you can actually make a profit because you have a collectible. Likewise, you have a lot of fraud that happens with home title things and all kinds of stuff. Well, if you have your home title on the blockchain and it's clear that you own it, right? It's immutable. It can't be changed, which means unless you do something stupid, it can't be stolen. Like, it's permanent. It is a record of the things you have. Other uses that aren't necessarily like fun comic book animation entertainment stuff that I think are important. You know, we're now in the age of AI and deep fake technology, and I don't know how familiar you or your audience are with what's going on, but we're about 6 months away from people being able to make blockbuster, like $150 million films, right? But from their laptop, because you can now use a prompt just as you would in ChatGPT or any other AI program. You can type in and it will render video, and the video is spectacular. It looks like a blockbuster movie. And so we're very, very soon moving into that age where you're not going to be able to tell reality from video, right? And we're already there now.
You think that's going to challenge maybe, Hollywood per se, Netflix?
Oh yeah.
Amazon?
Why do you think they're on strike? Currently.
Yeah.
That's why. That's the key. One of the key things is that they're afraid that AI is going to take their job, and they're correct.
Yeah.
And so when you have all of these potentials to, where someone could take your likeness and do something negative to you, well, once that video is encoded on the blockchain, or once these images are encoded on the blockchain, there's a permanent record that shows this is original, and this has been edited, modified, or for whatever reason is not the original. And so I have no doubt, one of the things that excites me the most, just as a potential investor for these things, is when you start to see police with their body cams. Very soon, all those body cams will be encoded onto the blockchain, so that the judge in whatever case will know for certain, and the jury, of course, will know for certain this actually happened. Here's the record.
Jeez.
Because if it had been modified, it wouldn't have the same record.
Yeah, I know the Biden administration just cut a deal with the guys who run these AIs like Midjourney and stuff to start marking stuff, so that it's somehow putting an identifier on stuff so they can know what's fake and not. We probably need more of that. But geez, I just thought that, what if somebody takes a body cam and does a deep fake on it, and can create a fake scenario that, and then that goes viral. We're already seeing, politicians being thrown under the bus and in some deep fakes, like, oh, this guy died or something. And people are like, oh my God,
and people believe it because we're so like the old phrase of like, don't believe everything you hear, or don't believe everything you read. Well, video, we have such a trust in video because we see it.
Yeah.
Right. And we now can't trust whatever you see with your own eyes.
Wow.
Right. And so we actually now have a technology that can actually ensure originality, ensure proof of truth, I guess,
Mhm.
or at least original sourcing. Plus, it transcends that and goes into entertainment as well. So you
Mhm.
get to make something, you can own it. Whereas if you were an artist and you draw a picture and you put it on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, anyone can just drag it and drop it to their desktop and they own it, because
There you go.
there's nothing that says it's the original.
There you go.
Right.
You've talked about how in the next 6 months we're going to see this explosion of people making their own films. We lived through a few of these iterations. I mean, it used to be there was 3 news stations that you watched on TV when I grew up and probably you grew up. And now, there's everybody's got a damn news idea or concept. Everyone's on Facebook talking about whatever I want to say Ted Koch, but he was the head of New York, or what? I've got something mixed up. Ted Koppel, that's the word I'm looking for. Everybody thinks they're the news anchor desk of CBS,
Right.
And then we've seen that with video. We've seen that with YouTube. Of course, we were early on with YouTube videos, and news has been disrupted incredibly. And geez, if they disrupt films. What's interesting thing about film is one of our biggest exports and major money makers. It's still it might be a cornerstone of our country. I don't know. In the billions of dollars that go into it. Geez, if you blow up Hollywood and democratize it to where just about any idiot like me can make a movie and possibly sell $150 million worth of it, or a semblance of it. I mean, there's lots of creators on YouTube that don't make a lot of money, but they enjoy doing what they do, or they make enough to get by. That can be really huge. I mean, and no, I don't think anyone wants to see me as a leading man in any movie anytime soon.
Well, I think it depends on perspective, right? And one could argue that it's already happening. Like, you have really big legacy companies like Disney and other companies, and sometimes, without going too deep into the weeds of it, I mean, even some of their movies that they make are now being banned in China or being banned in other countries.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're tailoring their content specifically for the rest of the world because of the saturation of the American market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're already getting pushback. And so I think there's going to be a huge opportunity for the creator to grow their own audience, grow their own property, build their own businesses around whatever it is that they create.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a traditional quote unquote business or virtual, it's not going to matter. And then these larger legacy companies will end up being the partners.
Wow.
I think just as you saw, and you've already seen this, if you think about what Disney did with Star Wars, what did they do? They bought it.
Mm-hmm.
Disney and Marvel, what did they do? They bought it.
Yeah.
Right? There's all this like consolidation and acquisition happening because they need that fuel. They need those original stories. They need those creators. Mm-hmm. And then what happens, just because they're large companies and for whatever reason, they end up squeezing them like a grape until there's nothing left for a while, right? and so they need to find something else. And so I think this is why you're finding YouTube stars kind of blow up now, where they have their own TV shows or they're getting their own movie deals or all this kind of stuff. It's just going to elevate. And so I think you're going to see, not just from the creator economy, but from every sector, I think you're going to see large companies start to partner with people who kind of stake it out on their own, in their own way, and make a name for themselves and make an audience for themselves. Any large company is going to want to magnetize themselves to that.
So I went through the Twitter social media, new revolutionary era post the Great Recession, and it was like the Wild West. And then of course there was the gobble up of Facebook buys everything, and as you mentioned, Disney buys everything. Robert Iger just took over again as CEO. I think he's a great guy of Disney, and I think one of his comments that he's made, correct me if I have this wrong, but he felt like they did the Marvel movies, like too many. They just they kind of fed too many into the system instead of trying to pace it out and not to overkill the brand. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's correct. And I think one of the things that hurt the brand, so when I was there, I came into Marvel when I think they were doing Iron Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I found fascinating and really as a positive was, at the time, the film division, the MCU side, which was in Burbank, was basically using the Marvel writers as a writer room. So they didn't know a lot, because they're Hollywood people. They didn't know a lot about the source material, and so they would have calls, and they would have conferences and retreats with a lot of the well-known writers of Marvel to say, okay, and basically just talk about the characters, the storylines, how this could work, how that could work. And I think you saw that outcome in that first decade of film, all the way up through Endgame, right? Now, prior to that, prior to Endgame, and I think was it I don't remember if it was happening when I was there or after I left, but at some point, Disney basically said, "We don't need you guys anymore. Thanks. We got this." Right? I mean,
wow.
Hundreds of billions of dollars, a year later, and you start to, I guess you start to feel like you know what's up. And so they didn't talk to any of the writers. They didn't talk to any of the creators. There's still people. I don't want to make a false impression. There's definitely still people at the MCU in there that know the history of Marvel and that are very knowledgeable of the topics, of course. But to the degree as it was in the initial days, it was no longer the case. And in my opinion, I think, and I could be totally wrong, and that is a little bit of an outsider looking in, even though I was there for a while. Like, in my opinion, I think that hurt the films, hurt the brand, because they're at the point now where a lot of the storylines, a lot of the characters, a lot of the things that are going on are kind of in name only. Right. And maybe that's because they feel like they've kind of gone through the history and picked out the best stuff, and now they have to create new stuff. I don't know. But I think that there's a creative deficit. There's a gap between the fans like myself, who there's a million stories I would love to see, right? And the people who are making it, who either may not like the original story, think they can do a better job, may want to use it as a platform for something else. Whatever the reasoning, they're not elevating the classic stories in a way that they were in the beginning.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I probably lost my comic book fan years ago, but I kind of gave up watching Spider-Man. Don't hate me, but it's just like, can we quit telling the original story and do something different? Like, every time I go, I'm like, wait, I thought there was another guy who was Spider-Man. Who's this guy this week? The same thing with Batman. It's really annoying, especially when you put the guy from the vampire movies who can't act his way out of a paper bag in charge of Batman. Come on. Which is probably why they brought back the great actor, I forget his name, but he's been in so many movies for one of the Marvel things. And I'm like, yeah, go back to him. But they did, Star Wars did the same thing too. Like, I like Star Wars, but it's like, how many fucking movies do we have to blow up the Death Star in, for real? Like,
right.
Can we?
Well, that they don't know. They don't know what to do. They're like, well, the fans like this, so do the thing again. We'll just do the same movie but different.
Like,
right?
No more Death Star. Just move on. Like, they have kind of the I guess the Manchurian I want to say the Manchurian candidate. How old am I?
The Manchurian Mandalorian.
Yeah, the Mandalorian. Yeah, with the little baby Yoda. But even then,
Mandalorian.
Yeah, but even then, so many of these movies now, you or I probably remember watching movies back in the day where they didn't make movies necessarily for children targeted or, multifamily spans. And they also didn't make movies for merchandising. Like, there was no Jar Jar Binks and crap and different things for, like, we can sell animated dolls of this idiot character. I mean, they kind of did a little bit, I guess, back in the day, but it wasn't like the movie didn't seem designed for that. You know what I mean? Like, you can watch movies nowadays and you're like, oh, this is clearly something that's going to end up in the Disney store. I don't know.
I think that's a great point. Right. And I think that's also why you're already seeing sort of a bottoms up reaction to that, where people are just like, screw it, I'll make my own content.
Yeah.
Like, the technology's here where we're like, we can do it ourselves. And I think what you're seeing and what you're reacting against is a combination of the natural greed of large industries, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just sort of the way it works. And the budgets, the ballooned budgets that they have now for these things. If you're going to put in $300 million into a movie, it has to be $1 billion blockbuster just to break even.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I kind of miss, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Fugitive with Harrison Ford.
That was a good movie.
Or The Game with
that was such a great fucking
one of my all-time favorite movies, man.
So brilliant. I never saw the ending coming.
Oh, me neither. And I still watch it. And
I love movies like that.
But that's the thing. Was that $100 million budget? Of course not.
Yeah.
Did they make it with the idea that there were going to be toys and all this kind of stuff? No. And that's okay, right? Yeah, that would be great. Although I do know a guy who basically turned the game into an actual business.
Did he really?
That's a topic for another time.
Yeah. Probably a life coach or something like that.
No, like literally doing what happened in the game.
Wow. Okay, there's some. I hope his liability policies are high. That was one of those movies that I didn't see, but you bring up a good segue why people are sick of Hollywood. I mean, I think even what was the movie back in the day that I think was a black and white, and it was from the 20s or 30s, and it started making fun of how Hollywood just recycles everything. And the irony was, it's the gal that comes down the stairs. It's the washed up actress, I think, movie.
Yeah,
I forget.
I don't remember.
But they started the meme joke of Hollywood just recycles everything. And this is in black and white, 1920s, 1930s Hollywood. And yeah, I think you're right. I think everything's been done so much, overdone, redone. I mean, do we really want to see Iron Eagle 20 and Iron Man 10?
Right.
I mean, come on.
What do you do as a multi-billion-dollar international conglomerate when someone on YouTube can have 5, 6, 7, 8 million subscribers and get 250,000 views on any video that they make in a week?
Yeah. Look
at how do you compete with that, right?
Who's that guy that he just owns YouTube? He's a billionaire basically.
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast, yeah. Mm-hmm. You look at a guy like that, and you're just like, and there's a lot of kids that would rather watch his movies than some of the stuff that they put in theaters. They tried using a lot of this AI technology in the new Raiders of the Lost Ark. I guess that's a bomb now. I was going to mention earlier, I want to fall back to this a little bit, but not spend time on it. But we talked about how merchandising and the manipulation in the movies that breaks the fourth wall for me. When I see the merchandising or I see the play in the movie, that you're just like, that didn't need to be in here. You put that in there for a merchandising play, or you put that in there for some sort of social commentary, virtue signaling play. Yeah. Like I'm never going to go watch the Barbie movie. I've heard it's all over the place, and it's kind of an interesting, funny commentary, but evidently they tried to slap everybody in the face. And to me, that's not a movie. I want to see a story. I don't want to see a pop culture, social media commentary, fucking whatever. If I want to see that, I'll go on Twitter, Facebook.
Well, I think that's what you're saying is the a planet-wide reaction to that.
Yeah.
Right. With Web3, with blockchain, with all this stuff. Like, again, you are now part of a community, and the way the people that support you. And what I mean by that is you make the thing and you start to attract people. And as you work hard and as they work hard making their thing, you support each other. And so as you start to build your audience, as other people start to build their audiences, and as you start to do joint venture partnerships or collaborations or giveaways or raffles with one another, the audience cross-pollinates, and you start to share the wealth of the creators, right? Of that creation moment. And so it eliminates the ability. I mean, certainly you can make a topic on whatever you want to talk about, but there has to be people involved, because what Web3 does is it democratizes the creation process. So there is no black box anymore of saying, hey, I'm going to make the movie that I want to make, and I'm going to say the thing that I want to say. You can do that, but good luck, right? Huh. Whereas when you go to Web3 and you're saying, hey, I really want to make this film, and in order to get this film funded, we're actually going to sell these digital collectibles that can be redeemed for this. You can vote on this. You can actually have a say in the direction of the movie, maybe even who we cast. As the audience becomes a part of the filmmaking process or whatever creative endeavor it is, they end up becoming not only your biggest fans, they become your kind of like your biggest what do you call it, like evangelists, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're a part. You are now bringing people. It's not, again, our generation is, I want to go to see a movie that I like and they're not giving it to me, therefore I'm not going to go again, right? Because we're the consumer, they're the product creator. Mm-hmm. But now everybody is a part of the same process. So everybody is kind of putting their little 2 cents in, and you have you can have voting systems, or just by trade, just by volume, just by community. Everybody gets a chance to kind of put their input in. Doesn't mean everything gets made. Too many cooks in the kitchen is still a thing, right? But when the final product gets pushed out there, when it gets made, when it gets sold, everybody celebrates because everybody had a hand in making of the thing. You were there from the beginning. You didn't just go to see a trailer and go to a movie. You saw the casting, you saw the shots, you got updates daily on the filming. And the director, there was that one time the director said, "What do you guys think of the shot?" And you said, "I think you should reshoot it." And he said, "You're right, we should reshoot it." And they did. And it's so cool. So all of a sudden you have a communal way of creating whatever it is that you need to create. And I talk a lot about entertainment and pop culture, but it's not just about entertainment and pop culture. Right. It goes to everything that we do as a society.
Well, this will be explosive. I mean, you're saying in 6 months we'll have these people making movies. I've already seen what people are doing with AI, with all the different artwork they're making and writing and stuff. I mean, you could probably write a lot of scripts on AI these days, ChatGPT as well. I imagine there's people already doing that. They're writing books on it, I know that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if we have a disruptive movie thing, that's just gonna be huge because people are gonna tell original stories. I've seen, like Martin Scorsese. You watch some of his original films. I'm kind of a fan of some of them. You watch how he came up and how he developed and different things, and how that made a difference and made great producers in film. The original Akira Kurosawa movies. You watch those. I'm a big fan of him. You watch some of those original things. I mean, he made basically the genre of film, basically, and cinematography and stuff. And screen shots, which is, I guess, is cinematography. But yeah, if we have all these people, that it becomes democratized, where you don't have. I know a million people in Hollywood that Hollywood too, and there's a million people with a script. I mean, I can't walk around. You can't walk around Hollywood for 5 seconds without someone trying to hand you a script.
Right.
There's so many creative talent that are probably there that is a base that could be tapped into, and this could be really huge.
Well, I'll give you one more example in the creative. I'll just show you from when I saw, and I think a lot of people, it's so interesting. I was talking to somebody much smarter than me the other day, and we're in a very strange time where, right now, if you think about games, the games own the player, right? So why wouldn't the player want to own the game? Mm-hmm. Well, of course, if you're a player of a game, who wouldn't want to own that? Mm-hmm. But we've been conditioned. It's very much almost very similar to like a Stockholm syndrome, right? Where we actually sympathize with our captors, where we're like, well, what do you mean I can own it? Well, I mean, it's such a radical concept that I think it's very hard for people to grasp. So as an example, like with adult fantasy, we are, after Web3 Comic-Con, we're actually in development of a tabletop role-playing game.
Oh, really?
Do you ever play tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that?
But when I was a kid, we played tabletop. I didn't ever get into D&D, but I know a lot of people are. It's huge.
It's huge. So when one of the first rules of doing any kind of tabletop role-playing game is you're making your character, right? The inherent problem with making your character in a tabletop game is that after the game is over, you don't really have a use for the character. Even if that campaign lasts a year and a half, when that campaign ends, that character document just goes in a little folder and you get to keep it, and good luck, kid, have fun. And you just create another character. Well, because of technology like the blockchain, what we have the ability to do is to create a very simple rules light character builder and campaign generator where you can come in, you can create your character. We even use AI to help generate the backstory. So you get a really nice detailed backstory of a character. And then you play the game. And as you play the game, because of technologies like AI and blockchain, these things can get logged. So for instance, you're playing a game, all of a sudden you have an account, like a profile, like you would on any application, any web app, where here's the history of your character and all the adventures that they've done, right? And once you start to bring things in like AI, you don't even have to be awake, because all of a sudden you have an AI system that's like, oh, well, while you were asleep, somebody in Utah was playing and their characters met your character in a village that you were visiting.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden you have these new little snippets of story that are developing your character over time. Well, as you're developing a character over time in this way, and you're doing it through fun, I think that's the most important thing. It's not work, you're playing a game.
Yeah.
So as you're having fun and you're developing a character and this rich lore and this rich backstory, well, what happens is other people start to recognize your character. First is people at your table or people that you play with. And then as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, certain characters will start to get recognized across the spectrum of any number of games that are being played. And as these characters hit a certain level, now we have a character with a rich lore and backstory, with tons of stories, with an audience that knows the character and cares about the character. And now we can actually reach out to other partners through licensing deals and product deals to actually make your character into toys and t-shirts and lunchboxes and animated shows, all of that stuff. And of course, you as the creator of that character, you get rewarded for it. And so I think this is the future, at least with my passion with these character franchises. This is the future. Like, why wouldn't you kind of crowdsource the creation of new properties, the next Marvel universe, the next big MCU thing? Why not crowdsource it from people that care about it and play it? And then let the cream rise to the top and reward that. And then everybody wins.
There you go. Well, you've given me some amazing ideas, and wow, I didn't even think about this future of film. So you've opened my eyes to that. That's really an interesting play on disruption of Hollywood and all the things. I mean, technically, no one's ever disrupted. And one of the problems with the Hollywood is it is kind of a, I don't know what you say, it's a top 1% sort of game. I mean, even that shows in the distribution of money in the SAG stuff, most of the people, I think what's the average person in SAG make, like $30,000 a year or something. So it might be less, but and that's why they're on strike. But geez, if we democratize that whole thing for making film, I mean, right now I've got my Old Man and the Sea beard, so I've got some Hemingway movie ideas, or Orson Welles. I could probably do Orson Welles if I can learn Othello or something. I don't fucking know. I'll just do Citizen Kane too. Just run around and I don't know.
That's right.
Rosebud. The that, or I could do a really sad movie about the pathetic life of a podcast host, and all the drinking I do in the back. I don't do drinking. Like, I know this thing where you have this glorious podcast interviews in life, and then offset, you're just like, my life sucks. Which is Fridays around here. I don't know what that means anyway. I don't know. For some reason, I have some dark drama of that in the back of my head. I don't know why.
That's great.
And I see who was the actor who played Batman. He also played that Daddy movie where it was in the 80s where he was at home. He's a great actor. We referenced him earlier in the show. And
I'm terrible.
I can't bring him up. Yeah, I'm terrible with names. I'm great with faces, but I'm thinking of him in the movie. He's played some recently dark characters and stuff. So I'm thinking of some of his stuff, but yeah, there you go. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the black swan of podcasting.
The black swan. Yeah. Something dark like that, where it's like I don't know. Maybe there's like a podcasting ghost that haunts me or some shit. I don't fucking know.
That's right.
But yeah, something like that. God, it's the 1989. Michael Keaton is the name I keep.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's some of the references we've been doing on the callback of the show. So I see him playing, I don't know, some washed up dude or something, in I don't know, some dark place. So which is Fridays around here. Anyway, moving on. I don't know. I got one. Hey, if you have a better screenplay, send it in the Chris Voss show. Send it in our email, and we'll give it a look. And maybe I don't know. Maybe there's a movie there or something that will just bomb, which is probably apropos for this moment. Anyway, Todd, anything else you want to promote or plug before we go out that we haven't covered on?
No, man. I would just say check out adultfantasy.io. It's spelled exactly the way it sounds. I promise it's not pornographic smut. Although don't tempt me. And and Web3 Comic Con, WEB, the number 3 COMICON.com. It's the largest online only Web3 pop culture conference, and it celebrates creators and fans. It's live August 16th through 18th, but don't worry if you're listening to this after, there's going to be replays. Just hop in. It's really simple. It's free. So just give us your email and name, and we'll send you a bunch of information and show you how to do it. And honestly, Chris, thank you for this, because this has been a blast. And I also look, man, whether we're talking about the democratization of film or anything, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? We're both examples of that. 25 years ago, could you this wasn't a possibility. It was either radio hosting or nothing, right? And then you're hopping in. It's I'll just compete with Rush Limbaugh. It'll be fine. And or on my side, even a couple months ago, we started talking about Web3 Comic Con last year, and who the hell can launch a convention? We've got 40 speakers, the biggest names in Web3. We have a tiny team. We're just a handful of people. But we were able to do something virtually that costs tens of millions of dollars to do in real life. Yeah. Tens of millions, and has the same buzz, the same fun, the same. I mean, everyone's really enjoying themselves. We're getting great feedback. And it's just a sign of the times. If you really want to do something, now's the time to do it. Don't let anyone stop you, and do your research and figure out a way to make it happen.
There you go. I'm going to start thinking of movie scripts and movie plots for Chris Voss, the Chris Voss show. And I'm glad you presented this, because, we were just going to launch an OnlyFans next week. So
sold.
No one wants to see that. So anyway, thanks, Todd, for coming on. And what a wonderful discussion as well. We got your .coms, right? I think you just plugged them.
Yeah, sure. Adultfantasy.io and web3comiccon.com. And Web3 Comic Con is spelled WEB, the number 3 COMICON.
There you go. And thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
There you go. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss for the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Give us 5-star reviews on iTunes. LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. And I think YouTube.com/Chris Voss if I missed it. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.